This morning, Terri Price Smith is the One Nation candidate for the seat of Ballarat, so going up against the incumbent Catherine King. Terri Price Smith is our guest. Terri, good morning.
Good morning, Steve. How are you?
I'm very well. I did mention this is your third time standing for politics. Is that right?
Yes, that's correct. Yes.
Okay, and not all for One Nation.
No, I started with Clive Palmer's United Australia Party back in I think it was April 2022,
Yep.
and to run in the federal election.
Okay, and then after that federal election, you've stood for One Nation in the Victorian state poll, but it is One Nation again this time. Why do you want to stand for Parliament?
I really believe I've got a lot to give this electorate. I've got businesses. I run businesses in a lean and mean way, and I run them very successfully. And it worries me that by almost every metric that we measure the health of an electorate or a country is we are failing spectacularly. And I really feel a strong need to get in there, put my hand up, get in there, and fight for the constituents of Ballarat.
Okay, why through One Nation? Why that party?
I've always believed in One Nation. Pauline Hanson has never strayed from her message over the last 30 years. You have to admit she's never changed anything about her policies. And I believe in all of the policies of One Nation. And because I also, like Pauline Hanson, I love this country. I really love Australia and I love Ballarat. Ballarat's been really good to my family and to me. And I want to fight for this country because I really think we are heading in the wrong direction. And I think somebody has got to do something because at the moment, with this Labor government, I think, they're heading in the wrong direction. And I think we have to chart a really different course.
Okay, just a moment ago you said that we're failing. I wonder how we are failing. What do you think Australia is failing at?
Well, I'd have to say we've got $1 trillion of debt. And that's climbing. And I'd love to ask our leaders, these Labor leaders, what exactly have we got to show for that $1 trillion debt? We actually don't have good roads. Our health and education is failing. We have very high interest rates. We've got people here in Ballarat who are, Steve, they're locked out of the housing market. They can't afford to get a foot in the market. So all of the things that, people can't afford to go to the doctor. And if they do have to have surgery, the waiting lists are still too long. And Steve, it shouldn't be happening in a country as wealthy as Australia.
Do you accept, though, that the two major parties at least are putting a lot of focus on housing at the moment with incentives for people to be able to purchase their first house? So are those incentives not enough?
No, I don't think they are. I think we've got to strike at the heart of the reason for this cost of living crisis, which is our mad obsession with net zero. I think that's doing the most amount of damage. I think we really have to look very, very closely at pulling out of the Paris Accord. That's actually crippling our country. That's what's driving the cost of living crisis. The energy crisis is just ruining Ballarat families. And I really want to change that. And the major parties are very irrationally committed to net zero. I believe our climate changes and has changed forever, but I don't believe the global warming nonsense. I believe it's propaganda, and especially when countries like China are not even signatories to the Paris Climate Accord.
If it's propaganda, why are both of the major parties committed to addressing it? Now, granted, they both have very different ways of saying they want to address it, but why are they both committed to addressing it then if it's just propaganda?
It's a really good question, Steve, and I'd love them to justify why they're doing it, because I don't get it. Everything about signing up to the Paris Accord doesn't make sense. That's why America's just withdrawn from it, along with other international agencies like the UN and the WHO, and that's why China doesn't sign up. And I look at countries like China, I watch them buying our cheap coal, and I watch them providing cheap energy to their people, and I think, wow, I wish we could do that.
So I just want to be clear on this because there's a couple of SMSs. So while I accept that countries will do what they need to do economically, they'll make decisions, you actively don't believe the science of climate change?
No, I don't, and I think it has been largely debunked, and I think we have to do just as China does. They're doing what's in their nation's best interests, and that's what it really comes down to, Steve. I'm passionate about doing what's in the best interest for this nation. And if we pulled out of the climate accord tomorrow, it wouldn't change anything about our emissions, and it doesn't change anything about the emissions that are happening in China. But the great thing that would happen would be it would reduce our energy. And wouldn't it be fantastic if Ballarat families could fill their car up without breaking the bank? We could have lower interest rates, we could have less inflation, that we could be more productive. I just think we've got to chart this different course, and that's why we're different.
Terri, do you accept with your blanket refusal to accept the science on climate that you're in the minority, you're in the significant minority these days of opinion when it comes to climate science?
Well, I don't think I am, and I think a lot of people in the Ballarat electorate would actually agree with me on this. That I think we've been had. I think it's a bit of a con when countries like China are not signatories to this Paris Accord. They don't sign up to the global warming nonsense. If they did, that they wouldn't be buying our coal and emitting thousands and thousands of tonnes of CO2 when we emit very, very little. And I think, I think just like the voice to Parliament referendum we had last year, which we won resoundingly, a lot of Australians knew that it wasn't right. And I watched as they went in and out of the booth, and the result was a resounding no. And Australians are not stupid. They watch what's going on in the world, and I think we've actually lost a lot of trust in our government over this very thing.
Terri Price Smith, thank you for your time this morning.
Thank you.
One Nation candidate for Ballarat, Terri Price Smith, and standing for the third time for election. First time was for Clive Palmer's United Australia Party when that was the thing, and then at the state election for One Nation, and again at this federal election in the seat of Ballarat for One Nation.